All right. Testing. 1, 2, 3. We're looking good. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Testing. All right. So currently, as of recording this, we are about 1 week and some change out from the election between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. So where we are now, a week or so out, I believe that Kamala Harris is probably going to lose. And here's why. We find ourselves at a very precarious moment in American history, I feel. And I know that people have been probably saying that since the beginning of the creation of the country. But on the backs of the climate catastrophe, which has only gotten worse, in which America has failed to hit every benchmark they set out for themselves, the rise of fascism, both nationally and internationally, the skyrocketing cost of living, in which it's for a millennial or Gen Z to buy a house is a fairy tale at this point, inflation, wages staying stagnant after decades, a palpable sense that the economy does not work for the individual. The end of the American empire feels like it's near. And this is something that you can just sort of feel in an ambient sense all around you. Not only, though, is the empire in America failing, the way in which we do things failing, but it feels like the entire premise, the entire foundation in which our country's set up on, capitalism, patriotism, it all feels like it's falling short. I think that's something that would be bipartisan. I think that Republicans, Trump supporters would agree with that as well, for vastly different reasons, obviously, which we'll get into. But I think that there is a palpable sense that this country's headed in the wrong direction. And this is something that goes beyond just tweaking the tax code or paving streets or reorganizing the budget for Social Security or something like that. This sort of existential dread, this sort of existential crossroads we find ourselves in as Americans, it feels like it needs fundamental, systematic, foundational change. So here we are, looking this despair as Americans in the eyes. We all feel it, like I said, on an ambient level. It's everywhere. Even when you're not looking for it, you can feel it. And let's just get the obvious out of the way right now. There's a fucking genocide going on in Palestine right now that's supported by U.S. tax dollars. The U.S., under the Biden administration, is supporting Israel unconditionally with money and weapons. So if you want to just stop this video right here, a part of the reason I think Kamala Harris is going to lose is because of the genocide that she supports. The Institute for Middle Eastern Understanding Policy Project did a study in 3 swing states, Georgia, Arizona, and Pennsylvania. Their research showed that 80% of Democratic and independent voters support a permanent ceasefire, with 60% disapprove of sending weapons to Israel. At the time of recording this, there seems to be no end to Israel's assault and genocide on Gaza. They're in Lebanon, and they just attacked Iran. So right off the bat, the fact that Kamala is not addressing what her party overwhelmingly wants is a red flag and makes me think she's going to lose those swing states, therefore lose the election. The genocide is just one catastrophe in the list of things that are giving us despair as Americans. The genocide at the same time, though, is a good example, because in order to stop something like that, it's more than just, it would require more than just a ceasefire, although that would be greatly appreciated, and obviously the majority of Democratic voters want that. It would have to reimagine U.S.'s relationship with Israel. And this is what I'm talking about, a foundational, a systemic solution, something that's at the foundation. Not just, like I said, ceasefire, it's nice, but it's just clipping the top. It's not addressing the fundamental issue at hand, something that I think voters on both sides are craving. And this is where the Democrats get into the most trouble. And this starts in 2016, and it's happened all the way till this 2024 election. The Democratic National Committee's platform, as it's set up, fails to provide a cohesive vision for America moving forward. I'll give you an example. As much as this will pain a lot of people, myself included, to say, Trump has this down pretty well. Now, it's not quite a one-to-one comparison, considering a lot of the people that support Trump are significantly more sycophantic and loyal to the brand of Trumpism, and allowing him to get away with a lot more bullshit. Like, if you read his policy platform, it's fucking nuts. He literally has part of his policy platform is departing pro-Hamas radicals. Keeping men out of women's sports. That's something that he literally has on his party's platform. There's all sorts of other bullshit on his platform that is just straight fascism out of like a Nazi playbook. But I digress. with all that being said, the thing that his platform does really well is it addresses his voter base's fears directly and offers a substantial, I shall say, creative remedy for those fears. It first identifies the boogeyman like immigrants or electric cars. It has very clear imagery, very clear nouns. This is the issue, right? And then it offers up solutions with like powerful adjectives like great and strong and verbs like deporting or fighting. This is all to culminate in an end goal, which is a retreat into the past to make America great again. Again, clear imagery, an ethos, an idea, a direction. In this case, the direction is backwards into a fairy tale land of these people's mental prisons. But what it's effective at doing is it frames all this despair and chaos that we talked about at the beginning of this video as something that can be retreated from, as something that can be contained. It's something, the chaos can be reeled in. You know, the radicals just need to be beat. The walls just need to be built. There will be relief for your anxieties, he's telling his supporters. The walls, the borders will entomb us into our country, nationalism. It'll be our own little safe space that we can have control, another keyword, control. We can have control over all the craziness of progressivism, the future moving forward, the transsexuals, the immigrants. They'll be dealt with in a strong manner. And you won't have to worry about whether or not people will think you're gay or something like that. It's safe space, control with an emphasis on borders, going backwards. Say what you will about the MAGA platform, but at least it's an ethos. And this is not unlike Obama's brilliant 2008 campaign. So 2008, we're coming off George Bush's second term. We had the complete failure of Hurricane Katrina. The Iraq war is still kicking. Nobody at this point, everyone's soured on it. And this is right on the heels of the 2008 financial crisis. Obama comes in and properly collects and surveys people's anxieties, a similar despair that we face today, but not inflamed by social media and all that, but still palpable. And in noticing and commenting on this despair, Obama rightfully acknowledges that the country is failing. The American dream was failing. He looked around and said, yeah, shit sucks. You're right. He validated people, culminating in his brilliant, at this point, iconic phrase of change, emphasizing change. The way in which we did it before is bad. The American dream failed. Elect me and I will institute change from my predecessor. And this resonated even more for someone like Obama because he zoomed in on one particularly unpopular part of our society, which was healthcare. And he realized the anger. He understood it. And he acknowledged the shortcomings of that institution. He came in with a plan to revolutionize healthcare. Whether or not he was successful in it, that's a whole separate video. Another great example, and I know, again, it's not a one-to-one comparison because she doesn't have a chance of winning, but is Jill Stein. If you look at her platform on her website, it's very simple and very attractive for facing the despair. She addresses it head on. Her platform is separated into 3 sections: planet, people, and peace. She offers structural change like demilitarization, the Green New Deal, Medicare for all. These are policies and ideas that would change the foundation of American culture. These are policies that look at the despair, acknowledge it, and then attack the root causes of it. And this is where we get to what I consider to be the failures of the Kamala Harris campaign. Going through her platform, I feel like it lacks imagination or even a semblance of revolutionary thinking. It fails to meet the severity of the times. Now, that's not to say I think her platform's bad in any way. There's a lot of stuff in here I obviously can get behind. I would even say that the majority of it, particularly the first section where it's more specific, is all positive.
Cut taxes for working people, lower food and grocery costs, lower healthcare costs, lower prescription drug costs, lower energy costs, lower costs by protecting consumers from fares and fraud. Help Americans buy a home and afford rent. Invest in the small businesses that drive growth. Invest American innovation and industrial strength powered by American workers. Create security and opportunity. Strengthen opportunity in communities. Protect Americans. Make our tax code more fair and promote growth.
So in facing this palpable despair, Trump's vision of America was to turn it into a walled off society in which his supporters could regain the control that they think they once had. Obama wanted to rescue and rebuild a failed America. Bernie Sanders wanted to tear down and reimagine the entire medical and education system. Jill Stein literally wants revolution. And Kamala wants to tweak the existing system. There are no significant foundational or systematic changes in Kamala's platform. What she's essentially saying is it's not the foundation of our American project that's the problem. The system just needs to be corrected. It just needs to be nudged in the right direction. There's just some bad actors that need to be reprimanded or taken out. Certain things need to change. The settings need to be tweaked a little bit. One of the big keywords she uses in her platform is lowered, to lower. It's like she's going into the video game settings and just lowering the brightness or something. She's making tweaks, taking a little off the top without actually criticizing the foundations. The only verb she uses in her entire platform to signal a departure from the status quo or the foundation is create. And of all 13 sections, this is the only example I could find. She's essentially saying, hate the player, not the game. Now, here's a thought experiment to help drive home my point here. Imagine America as a big, large, neglected garden covered in big, gnarly weeds. The weeds have always been there, but in the last couple years, they've started to get a little unruly. They're getting a little ridiculous. So ridiculous that you can't even see out your windows now. The fire department came over and they said, this is a fire safety hazard. There's a chance that this could start a fire, would burn down the whole neighborhood. The weeds have gotten so big that now a family of snakes live in them, and they're eating neighborhood dogs and biting neighborhood children. The weed-infested garden is America, and it's a disaster to its inhabitants and its neighbors. Its problems, its weeds go deep below the surface. Kamala's plan is cutting the tops of the weeds just enough so you can kind of see out the window. Why I think Kamala Harris is going to lose this election is that her modest plan fails to meet the fervor of the moment. This overwhelming despair and dread that we have for the future that our country's heading in would require systematic and fundamental change that is largely absent from Kamala's platform. Now, whether or not this is fair to put on her is a different story. In a lot of ways, whether or not it's fair is irrelevant to whether or not she's going to win. I'm not saying she should or she shouldn't win. She also has the unique problem of running after an administration that she belonged to. So unlike Obama or Bernie, other Democratic candidates that have run successful campaigns in the past, at least in mainstream appeal, she's not able to talk badly about the last 4 years or diagnose some of these structural problems, because then the question comes about, well, you had 4 years in the White House. Why didn't the team that you were a part of do something about it? But this is a problem with the modern day Democratic Party in general. I mean, gone are the days of FDR's New Deal policies. Ever since the 70s, when the Democratic Party adopted corporatism and neoliberalism, the party finds itself in a precarious position where it wants to be seen as the more empathetic and progressive alternative to the rising fascism on the right. No matter what it does, it can't ultimately upset its donor class, which is made up of Wall Street, corporate donors, and special interests, etc., because the party is now structured in a way that depends on their support, the people profiting off the ever-growing weeds. So what you end up getting is this half-assed, convoluted approach to something that requires urgency. And while not all of the platform is wholly unwelcome, and large portions of it are, in my personal opinion, more attractive than what the Republicans are putting up, it still fails to address the systemic roots of the problems that are facing our country and, by extension, the world. I think if Democrats are going to fight off this new brand of palatable fascism, Fourth Reich fascism, then they're going to have to start thinking more revolutionarily and appealing to the middle and working classes. Bernie demonstrated that this was a solution that was very attractive. Go back and look at Bernie's early primary performances, particularly in Nevada, before the party got together and schemed him out. This would be scary and hard for a lot of the neoliberal left to hear, but they're going to have to abandon the Wall Street, the donor class, abandon the educated, politically correct, PhD, op-ed reading, ultra-Zionist, contingent of the center left. Focus on change that is palatable, that is material, that people will feel in their day-to-day life. People on the left don't want genocide in Gaza. They hate their health insurance. They want the corporations in charge of climate change to pay their price. And ultimately, they just want a better quality of life. And that requires significant changes, not trimming the weeds, pulling the weeds out by the roots.